So I created this slideshow to sort of help put things in a reasonably organized manner. Explore programs, not necessarily schools. And I say that because sometimes schools stink. Question: I've applied to 5 schools to get my master's in social work, and I was wondering how you go about looking for assistantships. I've had several people tell me I could get one through my program itself or from other offices on campus, like working for Res Life. How do you go about discovering those options? So I just email someone. Yeah. So if you applied to 5 schools, so it depends on where you applied, on whether or not those assistantships are available. If they're not available in your department because of funding reasons, then you'll have to look outside the department. And I mean, that was really nice that they mentioned about doing that, but I wouldn't email people until you've gotten accepted to a program. So there's going to be some lead time, right? You're going to get accepted in the spring at some point. Like a decision day is generally April 15th or May 15th. They'll want a decision about whether or not you accept their offer. So I would say you have like 2 or 3 months to reach out to those people if that's the case, Mouse. But other than that, there's really nowhere to look for assistantships because they are going to be, first of all, very close to the vest. So they're likely not going to be searchable as jobs. So you'll need to navigate a little bit once you get an email. Once you get an acceptance offer. So don't email people that you have just applied to and you're still waiting on a decision from. Definitely not. Because then they'll follow up with, "Are you a student?" And you'll say, "No, I'm waiting for something." And they'll be like, "All right, well, let me know when you're done." If you get accepted and don't go that year, but wait till the next and reapply. Okay, so that's a good question, Ramdas. It's really up to the school how they handle deferrals. There might be a baked-in deferral. So I'll give you an example. My Ph.D. program had a year deferral if necessary. So I could take a year to make a decision, right? To make a decision. Other schools don't have deferrals. You either accept it or you don't. If you reapply, you're just going to be reapplying just like you were reapplying, if that makes sense. Or if like you were just starting out. It's entirely possible that your application goes to other people in that year, right? I mean, because staff could have turnover, faculty could have turnover. You just don't know. And so if you get an acceptance offer, then and you don't want to go to school right away, then I would ask specifically about deferral. Yeah. But if you are getting accepted to work with a specific person, so some sort of apprenticeship model, they will want to know if you are going to do that, because that might impact their decision on whether or not to accept you. So be careful with that. Be very careful. So you need to accept the offer from the school first, or can I apply to this? You have to accept the offer first, Mouse. I'm sorry. I know it's a really awkward situation to accept school without a job prospect, technically, or income. But the school is giving you the space to get a degree for which you have to pay them, right? In tuition. And if they need the help, then they'll offer you a way to offset that tuition and also give you a stipend on top of that. But that's on them and whether or not they actually need the help and whether or not they have the funding to absorb the tuition, because you're not going to be paying it, or you're only going to be paying half of it or something like that. as well as then pay you. So you really do have to wait. It sounds really crappy, but that's really where we're at with it, because it's so imbalanced and it's so different from school to school. It's so different from state to state. It's even different from the United States to Canada. If you wanted to go if you wanted to go to a graduate school in Canada like McGill or U of T, explore programs. So this is where you start, and so this is the starting point for wherever you're at in the process. I have a sample timeline in a few minutes. This is where you want to get started, and I suggest making a spreadsheet because I'm all about that life. I'm all about the spreadsheet life, and things that you should have on your spreadsheet are things that I kind of already have on this. This is a snapshot of one of my actual application spreadsheet. And so you could, and it doesn't even include all of it, because I had to, didn't want to have a super wide image here, but I have the school name, obviously. I have the program. These are all PhD programs, by the way, because this was when I was in my master's program applying to graduate programs. Who the contact person was in that particular program or department. Okay, so this is not the faculty. This was just like the administrative person. Address, although addresses are becoming less and less important these days because things are becoming more and more online. This was a decade ago, so just be aware of that. They really are valuable for everything. And then I put possible advisors down. And I generally only ranked my one on this spreadsheet, but there are others. And rest her soul right here, Nalini Ambati. She died about 5 years ago of cancer. So didn't end up working with her at Tufts. And so I also put application due dates. This is actually how the spreadsheet was sorted by application due dates, just to make sure that I had everything in order and I was taking care of the ones that were coming up first and second and third and all the way down. And then I identified what kind of application situation there was, whether or not there was a department application as well as a university application. So you might have to fill out two, right? And whether or not it was online or if it was in form, everything's online now. Like this was not the case a decade ago. But everything's online now, and everything is really, really online now because of COVID. So in other columns on this, I had tuition costs, but I knew I was only applying to programs where tuition was going to be waived because I was going to get at least a teaching assistantship. Okay, so it was going to be a TA for a lecture course or a lab course every term, whether it was a semester or a quarter. So I had tuition cost on there, but it didn't really factor into a lot of things that I did. The other thing that I got, that I have in a column was app fee, whether I needed to mail it. And so application fees are really important. Definitely explore fee waivers if they are there. I also had if they needed any kind of standardized tests. So yeah, standardized tests like a GRE. I have those in slides here, so we'll go through those as well. So how many programs are you I have this program. How many programs do you want to go with? Do you want to do a targeted few? This is obviously going to be less chance of acceptance, but it's going to be less time for both you and your letter writers, and less cost. So not as many dollars coming out of your pocket if you're not getting application fee waivers. Or you could do many, like me. I applied to 19 schools. I'm not proud of it. I wouldn't do it again. But again, I said not to do what I did at the start. I don't recommend anybody pay $19 schools worth of application fees, because I didn't get any fee waivers, but I also had a full-time job that I could pay that. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. I didn't like doing that. I spent over $2,000 on application fees, mailing. I don't know what else was. And the mailing was a pain in the ass because there was one that I had to do express so it could get out of there. Yeah, $2,000, man. Oh, it was. But it does lead to a greater chance of acceptance, even if it's 1 out of 19. Now, again, you should not be comparing your experience to my experience, because I did all of the wrong things as an undergraduate. I did all of the wrong things. So that was mostly my fault. Don't apply to 19. Don't pay $2,000. You still, if you do, you will have a greater chance. That's just how it works, right? That's just how it works. What kinds of programs? Well, let's break them up into 3 different tiers. So we could break them up into low-tier schools, mid-tier schools, and top-tier schools. Use a website like US News and World Report for rankings, right? And you can rank programs based on a number of factors. You can filter it in. If you have a paid account, you can do a lot more. Don't worry about doing a paid account. You can get as much information as you need by doing whatever. So think about that. So do your thing. If you're only applying to a few programs, then my suggestion would be apply to the vast majority. Let's say you're doing 5, then 3 of them should be lower tier schools. One should be a mid-tier school, and one of them should be like, this would be my dream school. This would be my dream advisor. This would be my dream position. This would help me get to all of the best jobs as fast as possible. Okay. So consider that. If you're going to be applying to a lot of programs, and by a lot, I mean somewhere around 10. Again, don't do 19. Now, 19 sounds like a lot. I should put that into context. I had 2 very strong passions as I was working on my master's thesis. I had a political psych passion, so I applied to political psychologists and their Ph.D. programs. So that would be subsumed within social psychology programs, PhDs. And then reasoning and logic was my other one. So, I mean, that's essentially what my master's thesis was, a blend of those 2 subfields. And so then I applied to a number of people who were doing reasoning and logic. So that's why it came out to 19. It still was way too many. And I probably could have done double duty on that if I had just focused really on like a solid 10. A solid 10. In those 2 disciplines, including the one that I eventually did get into, which was UCSB. And so if you're doing like 10, then spread the love. Have, a good handful of lower tier schools, have maybe an equal amount of mid-tier, and then have like 2 or 3 top tier schools. Shoot for the moon on that one. So that would be my advice on what kinds of programs that you're applying to. Now, master's program application fees are going to be cheaper than doctoral program application fees. The requirements are going to be fewer. The applications are probably going to be smaller. The statements are going to be a little different. So, be aware of that, I would say, when you're choosing which schools that you apply to. But definitely do not go to U.S. News and World Report and go, okay, what are the top 10 psychology programs? Okay, I'm going to apply to those 10. No. Don't. They want superstars. And I'm not saying you're not a superstar. I'm just saying, let's be realistic.